reach heaven's joys, O bright and sun. Heart of my heart, whatever befall, still be my vision, O ruler of
Welcome back to our study of the book of Genesis, the book of beginnings. We have now gone all the way through the life of Abraham, and we began to observe Isaac, his son. We found out that he was married 20 years before he had his first child, and that he was pleading with God all that time in behalf of his wife so that she could have a child. Rebekah was pregnant with 2 children, in point of fact, 2 boys, very, very different in nature. Esau, the one, red or hairy, was a hunter, a man of the outside, you might say, an outdoorsman. In contrast to that, Jacob was a more quiet man who stayed nearer the home place, so to speak. Esau was loved by Isaac. Jacob was loved by Rebekah, and that did lead to problems between these 2 young men as they were growing up. We saw right at the end of our lesson last time an agreement, a special agreement that was made between Isaac and Abimelech, and of course the well that they dug and were able to open up right about that same time he named Sheba, or if you would, Beersheba. Well of the oath is basically the idea behind the naming of that well. The 2 boys had an interesting life. Their youth is not described in great detail, except that we found out that Esau was so focused on things for his stomach that he couldn't think about the great blessing that went with being the firstborn, the birthright. And so he sold his birthright to his brother Jacob and basically didn't care. Didn't seem to mind at all that he had done so once he had gotten through eating. We will see that turns a little bit differently later on. Toward the end of the 26th chapter of the book of Genesis, in the last 2 verses, we find this statement. When Esau was 40 years old, he took his wives, Judith, the daughter of Berai the Hittite, and Basemath, the daughter of Elon the Hittite. And they were a grief of mind to Isaac and Rebekah. Several things within this small incident, at least in regard to the amount of space used to report it, tell us about the nature of this fellow Esau. First of all, he showed really no respect at all for his parents. Ordinarily, the parents would have arranged the marriage, but he didn't go to them. Secondly, he married daughters of the Hittites, the surrounding people. These ladies likely would have had no respect for God. They probably worshiped false gods from the area around them, and they may have been involved in activities that really would not in any wise go along with true God worshipers. All of that basically shows us that Esau really was not the man who needed to inherit the birthright. And he's demonstrating it in the way that he lives and particularly how he acts in regard to his marriage. Now, chapter 27 comes to the time of the blessing. Isaac thinks that he may be going to die soon, and like his dad before him, he wants to take care of matters and not leave them, as it were, dangling, unprovided for or cared for. And so that's how the chapter opens up. Now it came to pass when Isaac was old, and his eyes were so dim that he could not see, that he called Esau, his older son, and said to him, "My son?" And he answered, "Here I am." Then he said, "Behold, now I am old. I do not know the day of my death. Now therefore please take your weapons, your quiver, and your bow, and go out to the field and hunt game for me, and make me savory food such as I love, and bring it to me, that I may eat, that my soul may bless you before I die." Well, now if you remember, Isaac loved Esau, and a part of the reason he loved him was because he would hunt wild game and he'd fix it for him to eat. I don't guess it'd be any surprise then to us that he would call Esau in and get him to go out and hunt wild game, cook it, bring it back to him to eat. But then he says he's going to bless him. Now, typically, the blessing goes along with the birthright. Esau has already sold the birthright. He's already given that away. And yet his father still plans, apparently, to give the blessing to Esau. Well, in the background, there was an eavesdropper, you might say. Not surprisingly, I might add, because a woman is around the house. She's busy. She might very well have heard this accidentally, but listen to her response. Now Rebekah was listening when Isaac spoke to Esau, his son, and Esau went to the field to hunt game and to bring it. So Rebekah spoke to Jacob, her son, saying, Indeed, I heard your father speak to Esau, your brother, saying, Bring me game and make savory food for me, that I may eat it, and bless you in the presence of the Lord before my death. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice according to what I command you. Go now to the flock and bring me from there 2 choice kids of the goats, and I will make savory food from them for your father, such as he loves. Then you shall take it to your father, that he may eat it, and that he may bless you before his death. Wow. There's so much there that strikes us as odd and sad in some ways. One oddity is that we live in an era when many people want you to take wild game and make it taste like domesticated food. In other words, take venison, make it taste like beef or something like that. But in this era, Isaac loved wild game. And Rebekah has a particular talent, apparently, for taking goat meat and making it taste like wild game. Now that's just, to me, a point of interest, a curiosity, somewhat humorous. But the rest is not humorous at all. She is commanding her son to deceive her husband. That's her plan, so that he will get the blessing. Now, I must insert here the fact that God intended for Jacob to be blessed. The problem is that once more we see man, or in this case a woman, who thinks that it's her job to step in and make sure that everything works out the way God said that it would. God doesn't need man's help. God can make it happen without the help of man. But that's what Rebekah set out to do. Now, how do you suppose Jacob would respond to that? You may be a little bit surprised if you're thinking about your own children and they're very well behaved. Listen to this. As he responds to that, to Rebekah in verse 11, he says, Look, Esau, my brother, is a hairy man, and I am smooth-skinned. Perhaps my father will feel me, and I shall seem to be a deceiver to him, and I shall bring a curse on myself and not a blessing. Well, if his father thought that he might be deceiving him, he would have been right, wouldn't he? Because that's the exact intent of the command of Rebekah. And I want us to underscore that word. She commanded Jacob to do as she said. But he's worried. He's worried that he's going to be cursed instead of blessed. He's not worried that he's deceiving his dad. He's just worried that he might get caught in the deception. That's a little bit disturbing, I've got to admit. But then she responds to him, verse 13, Let your curse be on me, my son. Only obey my voice and go get them for me. So this is a command, and she's repeating it. Obey me. Do what I say. If you're cursed, I'll take the curse. Now, we want to watch how all this develops, because we almost wonder if there's a sense in which Rebekah does receive a type of curse from all of this that goes on. But let's read a little bit further. And he went and got them and brought them to his mother. And his mother made savory food, such as his father loved. Then Rebekah took the choice clothes of her elder son Esau, which were with her in the house, and put them on Jacob, her younger son. Now, you might ask this, why would she do that? Why get her Esau's clothes and put them on Jacob? Well, I would propose to you that each person's clothing smells differently. When I was growing up, I could always tell you when I was getting close to my grandmother or my grandfather, because they used mothballs in the closets in their houses, and all their clothes, to me, smelled like mothballs. That doesn't sound very flattering, true, but nonetheless, it is a reality. It was the way it was. Esau may have worn something very, very distinctive in terms of smell. We don't know, but we do know that his clothes would be identifiable in that way from the smell that would come off them. He was an outdoorsman, so likely the clothing was going to smell like the outdoors, and we'll see that that is exactly what is the case. But then go further. And she put skins of the kids of the goats on his hands and on the smooth part of his neck. He's worried that Dad's going to feel him and know this is not Esau. So she takes the goat skins, the young goats, the kids, and puts those skins on the back of his hands and on the back of his neck, the two places that his father would be most likely to touch during their exchanges. Then she gave the savory food and the bread which she had prepared into the hand of her son Jacob. So he went to his father and said, "My father?" And he said, "Here I am. Who are you, my son?" Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done just as you told me. Please arise, sit, and eat of my game, that your soul may bless me." But Isaac said to his son, "How is it that you have found it so quickly, my son?" And he said, "Because the Lord your God brought it to me." I do want to pause here and think first of all about exactly what Jacob said about God, the Lord your God. It's intriguing to me that for a number of chapters here in the book of Genesis, as Jacob becomes a more prominent character, that very often he identifies God as his father's God, or the God of his grandfather, Abraham. He does not, during this time frame at least, identify him as his God. Now, whether that is just a quirk or something that I've observed that has no value, I don't know, but it is intriguing to me to find that. Also notice that he really has no qualms about lying to his father. He doesn't want to be caught, but he will lie to him, does lie to him, and goes in and presents himself as if he were his brother Esau. Isaac catches on. We're going to see a part of why. A part of the why is the voice that he has, in addition to the fact that he's come so quickly from hunting the game, that he's been able to find it so fast. So naturally, you can anticipate what Isaac is going to do next. "Please come near, that I may feel you, my son, whether you are really my son Esau or not." So Jacob went near to Isaac his brother, and he felt him, and said, "The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau." And he did not recognize him, because his hands were hairy like his brother Esau's hands. So he blessed him. Then he said, "Are you really my son Esau?" He said, "I am." He said, "Bring it near to me, and I will eat of my son's game, so that my soul may bless you." So he brought it near to him, and he ate, and he brought him wine, and he drank. Then his father Isaac said to him, "Come near now, and kiss me, my son." And he came near and kissed him. And he smelled the smell of his clothing, and blessed him, and said, "Surely the smell of my son is like the smell of a field, which the Lord has blessed. Therefore may God give you of the dew of heaven, of the fatness of the earth, and plenty of grain and wine. Let peoples serve you, and nations bow down to you. Be master over your brethren, and let your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be those who bless you. I think we read this story, at least I'll say concerning myself, I have read this story, and I had a lot of sympathy for Isaac. I mean, Isaac is deceived. He's blind, can't really see. He's deceived by Rebekah and Jacob and their plans. But is he really quite innocent in this whole matter? I mean, after all, he knew two things. Number one, he knew that Esau had sold the birthright. But then number two, in addition to that, he also knew what God had told Rebekah when these two children, boys, were still in her womb. So one wonders, is Isaac really quite the sympathetic character that we've made him out to be, or is he also pushing ahead, trying to exert his own will in this matter to supersede the will of God? If so, I can tell you this, it didn't really matter what Rebekah and Jacob did, God would have taken care of it. But as you know, Jacob's now received the blessing. It's a beautiful blessing. It's a blessing that is rich with discussions about the land and dew, and which in that part of the world is so important, because it really only rains about 4 months of the year, and the rest of the time they are dependent upon the dew in order to have good crops. So he's really blessed him well. He's effectively passed on the blessing of Abraham when he talks about those who curse you be cursed and those who bless you be blessed. And that is where things close out, so to speak, with Jacob. And the next thing that you know, we get to see Esau again. Notice verse 30 of Genesis 27. Now it happened as soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, and Jacob had scarcely gone out from the presence of Isaac his father, that Esau his brother came in from his hunting. He also had made savory food and brought it to his father, and said to his father, "Let my father arise and eat his son's game, that your soul may bless me." And his father Isaac said to him, "Who are you?" So he said, "I am your son, your firstborn, Esau." Then Isaac trembled exceedingly and said, "Who? Where is the one who hunted game and brought it to me? I ate all of it before you came, and I have blessed him, and indeed he shall be blessed." Now, we probably don't understand that. We don't live in that kind of a culture. During that era, it was not uncommon at all. In fact, it would more nearly be common for wills to be expressed orally. And these oral wills were like law. They were held sacred, effectively, by the people of that era. In fact, if you look in some of the records of that era, you'll discover that lawsuits occurred, or what we'd call a lawsuit, occurred because of oral wills, and the oral wills were upheld. And so, I blessed him, he's going to be blessed. That's just the way it is. I have pronounced my oral will upon him, and God will honor it, and it will come to pass in exactly that way. Now, what had he given to Jacob? Just think about it a minute. He'd given him prosperity, as he talked about the fatness of the earth. He had given him prestige. When you look again, let people serve you and nations bow down to you. He had given him the patriarchal succession. We talked about that a moment ago. He had given him the blessing of Abraham. And that's being passed from one patriarch, Abraham, to Isaac, and now on to Jacob, as if he were the patriarch. He also gave him protection. May God curse those that curse you, bless those that bless you. Once more, protection, no doubt about it. Isaac's pronouncement then is an oral will with many, many blessings in it. Esau is in despair. He's in despair because of what has happened. And so listen to his response to what his father has told him. When Esau heard the words of his father, he cried with an exceedingly great and bitter cry, and said to his father, "Bless me, me also, O my father." But he said, "Your brother came with deceit, and has taken away your blessing. And Esau said, is he not rightly named Jacob? Remember, Jacob means to take the place of, or supplanter, or more literally, heel grabber. Isn't he still pulling himself up by grabbing hold of my heel, taking advantage of me? That's the message that he's presenting. For he has supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and now look, he's taken away my blessing. And he said, have you not reserved a blessing for me? Now wait a minute. Let's pause a minute and ask this question. Did Jacob totally take away the birthright, or did Esau, through his lack of concern, lack of care for it, did he not basically sell it to him? Now I'll grant you, Jacob knew what he was doing, and there's a way you could say he took it from him. But you also could say Esau was a contributor. He gave it away because he didn't really care about it. It didn't really matter to him. So that is within this. But now Esau wants a blessing too. And listen to Isaac's response. Then Isaac answered and said to Esau, indeed, I have made him your master and all his brethren. I've given him as servants. With grain and wine I've sustained him. What shall I now do for you, my son? And Esau said to his father, have you only one blessing? My father, bless me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. Then Isaac his father answered and said to him, behold, your dwelling shall be of the fatness of the earth and of the dew of heaven from above. By your sword you shall live, and you shall serve your brother. And it shall come to pass that you shall break his yoke from your neck. Well, it's not nearly the same blessing, is it? It doesn't carry with it nearly as many good things as what Jacob had heard in the blessing that he received. But there are some good things here. And there certainly is some prophecy looking down to the road when the Edomites would break off the bonds of their servitude to the descendants of Jacob, the children of Israel. So this is the story of the blessing. This is the story of the taking away of the blessing by deceit, and yet a blessing that it rightfully belonged to Jacob anyway, that God surely would have found a way to give to him, even if Rebekah and Jacob had not have set out to deceive Isaac and thereby take away what Esau believed was rightfully his. You can imagine, and perhaps you already know, the response that Esau gave to this whole event. It's reported in verse 41 of Genesis chapter 27. So Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing with which his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then I will kill my brother Jacob. And the words of Esau, her older son, were told to Rebekah. So she sent and called Jacob, her younger son, and said to him, surely your brother Esau comforts himself concerning you by intending to kill you. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice. Arise, flee to my brother Laban in Haran. Well, Esau now feels like he's had 2 things taken from him, the birthright and the blessing. And he is angry about the whole thing. So angry, in fact, that he's already plotting the murder of his brother. And it would be a murder that would, he felt like, apparently, rectify the whole situation. But it wouldn't. Because as we've already observed in the book of Hebrews, the problem here is with the attitude that Esau has toward holy things. He's profane. He's not a religious man. He's not a man that follows the instructions of God. He's a man of the earth, so to speak. And he pursues the earth. Well, Rebekah wants to get Jacob out of there lest she lose both sons. Now here's why that may have been the case. Had Esau have killed Jacob, then not only would she have lost Jacob, but she would have also lost Esau, because he would have at the minimum be cursed and driven away like Cain was. And so she'd have lost them both. She's making plans to avoid that problem, to keep that from happening. And so she goes into Isaac and makes really an entirely different argument, but it has the impact that she wants it to have. And she urges him to go to her brother's house, stay there a few days, she says, until your brother's fury turns away, until your brother's anger turns away from you and he forgets what you've done to him. Then I will send and bring you from there. Why should I be bereaved also of both of you in one day? And Rebekah said to Isaac, I am weary of my life because of the daughters of Heth. If Jacob takes a wife of the daughters of Heth, like these who are the daughters of the land, what good will my life be to me? Now remember, both Isaac and Rebekah are upset because of the marriage, or the two marriages that Esau has participated in. Rebekah knows that. She takes advantage of it, goes to Isaac and said, let's get Jacob out of here. Let's get him a wife, not from this country. She knows that that's a good idea, but it's a good idea for reasons Isaac doesn't even know about at the present time. But it's an idea that must be carried out in order to preserve, it would seem, the life of Jacob. Well, here's what happens. Then Isaac called Jacob and blessed him and charged him and said to him, you shall not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan. Arise, go to Padan Aram, to the house of Bethuel, your mother's father, and take yourself a wife from there of the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. Exactly what Rebekah wanted. That's what's going to take place. That's the direction he's sending Jacob off into. Now, here we see another blessing added on top of the first that was given as Isaac continues. May God Almighty bless you and make you fruitful and multiply you, that you may be an assembly of peoples, and give you the blessing of Abraham to you and your descendants with you, that you may inherit the land in which you are a stranger, which God gave to Abraham. So Isaac sent Jacob away, and he went to Padan Aram to Laban, the son of Bethuel, the Syrian, and the brother of Rebekah, the mother of Jacob and Esau. Now we've seen it. Tragedy, two sons who have their parents effectively pitted against each other because each of them is favored by a different parent. Jacob proves to be the supplanter more than once. Esau makes that point very clear. But he received the blessing that ultimately goes to the one who is the heir of Abraham. As we go forward, we'll see how this all plays out and the response of Esau and what happened to Isaac and Rebekah.
May I reach heaven's joys, O bright and sun, heart of my heart, whatever befall, still be my vision.